Captain Jake Morrison was drinking his morning coffee when the strangest message of his life came through. He was sitting in his command chair aboard the Terra Nova, watching the stars drift by outside the big windows. The ship was quiet. Most of the crew was still sleeping. The communication screen lit up with colors Jake had never seen before. Blues and greens swirled together like water moving in slow circles. Then a voice spoke, but it sounded like someone talking underwater. "Greetings, human vessel Terra Nova. This is High Admiral Kelthvar of the Zephyrian Empire. We wish to speak with your captain." Jake almost dropped his coffee cup. The Zephyrians were famous across the galaxy. They were old, proud, and powerful. Their empire had ruled the water worlds for thousands of years. They never talked to younger species like humans. Ever. "This is Captain Morrison," Jake said, trying to sound calm. "How can I help you?" The screen showed a creature that looked like a cross between a dolphin and an octopus. It had smooth blue skin and large dark eyes. When it moved, water seemed to flow around it even though it was clearly not underwater. "Captain Morrison, we come to you with a request that has never been made before in our long history. We wish to honor your species with a sacred duty." Jake looked around the bridge. His crew was starting to wake up and drift in for their morning shifts. Communications Officer Pete Rodriguez slid into his seat and started checking the message logs. His eyes went wide when he saw who was calling. "What kind of duty?" Jake asked. High Admiral Kelthvar moved closer to the screen. "We have established a new colony world in the Helix sector. It is a beautiful world with vast oceans and perfect storms. According to our most ancient traditions, only our most trusted and honored allies may name our new worlds." Jake felt his heart start beating faster. The Zephyrians wanted humans to name one of their worlds? This was huge. This was the kind of thing that could change everything between their species. "You want us to name your new colony?" Jake asked. "Yes. In all our history, spanning 4,000 of your Earth years, we have never extended this honor to any species outside our own empire. You would be the first." Dr. Lisa Bennett walked onto the bridge just in time to hear this. She was the ship's expert on alien cultures and languages. Her mouth fell open. She quickly moved to Jake's side. "Captain?" she whispered. "This is incredible. The Zephyrians consider naming rights to be the highest form of respect. They believe that names have power. The name of a world shapes its destiny." High Admiral Kelthvar continued speaking. "Our homeworld is called Zephythala, which means eternal waters of wisdom in your language. Our second world is Morthala, meaning sacred depths of peace. We expect that your species will offer something equally meaningful for our third world." Jake swallowed hard. The weight of responsibility hit him like a truck. These weren't just any aliens asking for help. These were the Zephyrians. If humans messed this up, it could ruin relationships with one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy. "We are deeply honored by your trust," Jake said. "May I ask why you chose humanity for this honor?" The alien leader's large eyes seemed to shine. "We have watched your species for many years. You are young, but you have something we admire. You face the unknown with courage. You help others even when it costs you. You find hope where others see only darkness. These are qualities we wish to see reflected in the name of our new world." Chief Science Officer Amy Clark had joined the group gathering around Jake's chair. She was frantically taking notes on her tablet. Security Chief Maria Santos stood nearby, looking amazed. "How long do we have to choose a name?" Jake asked. "The naming ceremony will take place in 7 of your days. The entire Zephyrian High Council will gather. The ceremony will be broadcast across our empire. Billions of our people will hear the name you choose." Jake felt sweat forming on his forehead. No pressure at all. "We accept this honor," Jake said. "We will choose a name worthy of your trust." High Admiral Kelthvar bowed his head. "We knew you would not disappoint us. We will send you data about the world so you may understand its nature. Choose wisely, Captain Morrison. The name you give will be spoken by our people for generations to come." The screen went dark. The bridge was completely quiet for a long moment. "Holy cow," Pete Rodriguez whispered. Did that really just happen? Amy Clark asked. Jake stood up and looked at his crew. Okay, people, we have 7 days to choose a name that will make history. Lisa, I want you to study everything about Zephyrian culture. Amy, analyze all the data they send us about this world. Pete, set up a communication schedule so we can coordinate with Earth Command. Maria, make sure we have backup plans for everything. Dr. Bennett looked worried. Captain, you have to understand how serious this is. The Zephyrians don't just pick names randomly. Every name has deep meaning. It connects to their philosophy, their religion, their entire way of seeing the universe. If we choose poorly... We won't choose poorly, Jake said, trying to sound confident. We're humans. We're good at this stuff. But even as he said it, Jake wondered if that was true. Humans were good at many things, but were they good at the kind of deep, meaningful naming that aliens who had been around for thousands of years would expect? The data packet from the Zephyrians arrived an hour later. Jake gathered his senior staff in the conference room to review it. The planet was indeed beautiful. It had 3 large oceans connected by narrow channels. The weather patterns created amazing storms that looked like art from space. The colors were incredible, blues and greens and silvers that seemed to dance across the surface. It's gorgeous, Amy said, studying the images. Look at these tidal patterns. The moons create these incredible whirlpool effects. The Zephyrians obviously chose it because it reminds them of home. Lisa added, water, storms, natural beauty, very important to their culture. Jake stared at the images, feeling the weight of 7 billion Zephyrian expectations on his shoulders. Somewhere out there, an entire empire was waiting to hear what name the humans would choose. He just hoped they could think of something good. The naming committee meeting started at 800 hours the next morning. Captain Jake Morrison had called together his best people to figure out what to call the Zephyrian world. The conference room felt smaller than usual with everyone crowded around the big table. Dr. Lisa Bennett had printed out thick folders of research about Zephyrian culture. She looked tired, like she had been up all night reading. Amy Clark had her tablet covered with notes about the planet's features. Pete Rodriguez was setting up the communication equipment so they could talk to Earth if needed. Okay, people, Jake said. We have 6 days left. Let's hear some ideas. Engineer Danny Wright raised his hand first. What about Aquatica Prime? It sounds official and it mentions the water. Security Chief Maria Santos shook her head. Too boring. The Zephyrians want something meaningful. What about New Oceanus? That connects to Earth's old sea god. Dr. Bennett looked up from her papers. Both of those could work, but I think we should try to include some Zephyrian language elements. Maybe something like Moraquathala. It would mean sacred waters of the new beginning in their tongue. Jake wrote the suggestions on the whiteboard. 3 names so far, and they all sounded pretty good. Maybe this wouldn't be so hard after all. What do we know about this planet that makes it special? Jake asked Amy. Amy pulled up the holographic display in the center of the table. The planet appeared in 3 dimensions, slowly rotating. It's really unique. See these 3 oceans? They're connected by these narrow channels here and here. The planet has 2 moons and they create incredible tidal effects. She touched the controls and the planet started showing its tidal cycle. Every 12 hours the tides rush through these channels. The water moves so fast it creates these massive whirlpools. From space you can see them easily. Everyone leaned forward to look. The whirlpools were huge, spinning slowly as the tidal water rushed between the oceans. That's actually beautiful, Maria said. Like nature's own art show. The Zephyrians probably love it, Lisa added. They see patterns in water as signs from their gods. Young Kyle Jones, the newest navigator on the ship, had been quiet during the meeting. He was only 23 and usually didn't speak up around the senior officers. But he had been staring at the holographic planet for several minutes. What do you think, Kyle? Jake asked, noticing his expression. Kyle blushed. Oh, I don't know, sir. I was just looking at those whirlpools. And? Kyle hesitated. He had been working double shifts for the past week covering for a sick crewmate. His eyes were red from lack of sleep. Well, sir, when you watch the tidal cycle like that, especially from this angle, He rotated the display. It kind of looks like... Like what? Amy encouraged. Kyle's face turned even redder. Like a giant toilet bowl being flushed. The room went completely silent. Everyone stared at the rotating planet. Jake watched the water swirl through the channels and drain into the whirlpools. Kyle was right. It did look exactly like that. "Oh no," Lisa whispered. "You can't unsee it once you notice it," Danny said, still staring. "Kyle," Maria laughed despite herself. "That's terrible." But Jake found himself studying the image more closely. The resemblance was incredible. The three oceans were like the bowl, and the channels were like the drain holes. When the tide went out, the water literally swirled down through the whirlpools, just like Kyle had said. "This is a problem," Jake said. "Why?" Pete asked. "It's just Kyle being Kyle. We don't have to tell the Zephyrians what it looks like to us." Dr. Bennett was shaking her head. "You don't understand. Once you see something like that, it affects how you think about naming it. Our subconscious will keep coming back to that image." She was right. Jake tried to focus on the beautiful aspects of the planet. The colors were amazing. The storms were artistic. The water patterns were complex and interesting. But every time he looked at those whirlpools, he thought about what Kyle had said. "Let's take a break," Jake announced. "Everyone go get some coffee and clear your heads. We'll meet back here in an hour." The crew filed out, but Jake stayed behind with Lisa. They both stared at the holographic planet still rotating slowly above the table. "This is bad, isn't it?" Jake asked. "It could be. Humans have a tendency to focus on the funny or unusual aspects of things. It's part of how we process new information. But the Zephyrians expect us to see the deep spiritual meaning." Jake sighed. "What would they think if they knew we were comparing their sacred new world to bathroom equipment?" "They would probably declare war," Lisa said quietly. When the meeting resumed, Jake tried to get everyone focused on serious naming again, but the damage was done. Every suggestion somehow came back to Kyle's observation. "What about spiral waters?" Amy suggested. "Like a toilet spiral," Danny muttered. "Tidal convergence?" Maria tried. "Where the water goes down the drain," Kyle said, then immediately looked sorry for speaking. "Whirlpool paradise?" Pete offered. Everyone just stared at him. Dr. Bennett tried to save the situation. "Let's focus on the Zephyrian language roots. Kelth means sacred and Var means deep and Thala means waters. We could combine them in new ways." Jake wrote more suggestions on the board, but he could see that the crew's minds kept wandering. They would start with a serious idea. Then someone would glance at the holographic planet and the conversation would drift back to the unfortunate resemblance. By the end of the day, they had a list of 20 possible names. Some were dignified and meaningful. Others were clearly influenced by Kyle's comment even when they tried to hide it. Jake looked at the list and felt a headache coming on. In 5 days, he would have to stand before the entire Zephyrian High Council and announce the name that humanity had chosen for their sacred world. He just hoped he could find something that sounded profound enough to satisfy alien gods and ancient traditions. Something that didn't make him think about plumbing. The problem was, every time he looked at that beautiful, swirling, artistic planet, all he could see was the galaxy's most expensive toilet. The day of the naming ceremony arrived faster than Captain Jake Morrison wanted. He stood in front of his mirror, adjusting his dress uniform for the 3rd time. His hands were shaking slightly. In 2 hours, he would speak to billions of Zephyrians and make history. The past 5 days had been a nightmare of committee meetings and arguments. The crew had suggested over 50 different names, but none of them felt right. Every time they looked at the planet data, someone would mention Kyle's toilet observation, and the whole discussion would fall apart. Jake had finally made a decision the night before. He chose the name Swirla, a compromise that tried to make the swirling water sound mysterious and important instead of embarrassing. Dr. Lisa Bennett had helped him write a speech about eternal cycles and cosmic dances. It sounded dignified, enough he hoped. "Captain Morrison to the bridge," came Pete Rodriguez's voice over the intercom. "The Zephyrians are ready to start." Jake took one last look in the mirror. His brown hair was neat, his uniform was perfect, and his expression looked confident. He didn't feel confident at all, but at least he looked the part. The bridge was crowded with his senior staff. Everyone had put on their best uniforms for the ceremony. The main screen showed the Zephyrian Crystal Amphitheater, a massive underwater dome filled with thousands of aliens. The water around them sparkled with bioluminescent lights. High Admiral Kelthvar floated in the center of the amphitheater. Around him sat the entire Zephyrian High Council, 12 of the most important leaders in their empire. Behind them, rows and rows of citizens waited to hear the name that humanity would give to their new world. The ceremony is being broadcast live across the entire Zephyrian Empire, Lisa whispered to Jake. Estimated audience of 7 billion beings. Jake's stomach dropped. 7 billion aliens were about to hear whatever came out of his mouth. Greetings, Captain Morrison. High Admiral Kelthvar's voice filled the bridge. Are you ready to bestow the sacred name upon our new world? We are honored to participate in this ceremony, Jake replied, reading from his prepared speech. He had practiced these words 100 times. The Zephyrian leader raised his arms, and the entire amphitheater fell silent. Let the ancient ritual begin. Citizens of the Zephyrian Empire, we gather today to witness something that has never happened before in our 4,000 years of history. For the first time, an alien species will name one of our worlds. Cheers echoed through the water. Jake could see thousands of Zephyrians waving their tentacles in celebration. The humans have proven themselves worthy of this honor through their courage, their compassion, and their wisdom. Captain Morrison, please share with us the name you have chosen and tell us its meaning. This was it. Jake stepped forward and looked directly into the camera. High Admiral Kelthvar, members of the High Council, citizens of the Zephyrian Empire, he began. We have studied your beautiful new world with great care. We have seen its 3 magnificent oceans, its artistic storm patterns, and its unique tidal systems. So far, so good. Jake felt his confidence growing. The name we have chosen reflects the eternal nature of water and the endless cycles of renewal that make life possible. We name this world Swirla. He paused for dramatic effect, just like he had practiced. Swirla represents the cosmic dance of waters, the eternal cycles of renewal, and the beautiful spiral patterns that connect all living things. Like the tides that flow between the oceans, Swirla symbolizes the connection between your empire and the broader galaxy. The Zephyrian amphitheater was completely quiet. Jake couldn't tell if that was good or bad. High Admiral Kelthvar floated closer to his own camera. Swirla, he repeated slowly, testing the word. A name we have never heard before. It has a pleasing sound. Please tell us more about these spiral patterns? Jake's heart was beating fast, but he continued with his prepared explanation. The tidal flows create natural spirals as they move between the oceans. These spirals represent the flow of time, the cycle of seasons, and the connection between past and future. In human philosophy, spirals are symbols of growth and eternal return. Sounded good. Jake was proud of how official and meaningful he made it sound. The High Admiral nodded slowly. Yes, we can see the wisdom in this name. Swirla, the world of eternal spirals. Let it be recorded in our sacred books. The amphitheater erupted in celebration. Zephyrians were singing what sounded like ancient songs. Lights flashed in patterns throughout the water. The naming ceremony is complete, High Admiral Kelthvar announced. Let all citizens know that our third world shall be called Swirla, named by our honored allies, the humans. May this name bring prosperity and wisdom to all who dwell there. Jake felt relief flooding through his body. They had done it. The ceremony was over, and the Zephyrians seemed happy with the name. Congratulations, Captain Morrison, the High Admiral said. This has been a historic day. We will begin preparations for the first colonist to travel to Swirla within the month. Thank you for this incredible honor, Jake replied. We hope Swirla brings your people many years of happiness. The formal part of the ceremony was ending, Jake started to relax for the first time in days. His crew was smiling and congratulating each other. They had pulled it off, but Pete Rodriguez had forgotten to close the communication channel. "Man, I can't believe we actually named their planet after a toilet and they bought it," Kyle Jones said to Danny Wright, not realizing his voice was being broadcast live to 7 billion Zephyrians. The celebration in the amphitheater stopped instantly. High Admiral Kelthvar's large eyes focused on the screen with laser intensity. "What did that young human just say?" Jake's blood turned to ice water. He spun around and saw Kyle's face turning white as he realized what had happened. Kyle stammered. "I didn't mean—" But it was too late. Across the Zephyrian Empire, translators were frantically working to understand what toilet meant in human language. The silence from the amphitheater was deafening. Jake looked at the screen and saw 7 billion aliens staring back at him, waiting for an explanation he couldn't possibly give. 3 months after what the galaxy now called the Swirla incident, Captain Jake Morrison was still getting messages from angry aliens. His communication screen beeped every few minutes with new complaints from species across the galaxy. The Terra Nova was docked at Starbase 7 for repairs and resupply. Jake sat in his quarters reading the latest batch of diplomatic protests. The Altarian Republic had sent a formal letter calling humans culturally irresponsible. The Krogan war clans had sent something that roughly translated to, "We think, you guys are hilarious but also kind of stupid." There was a knock at his door. "Come in," Jake called. Dr. Lisa Bennett entered with a thick folder of papers and her tablet. She looked exhausted. For the past 3 months she had been working, with Earth's diplomatic corps trying to fix the mess. "How bad is it today?" Jake asked. Lisa sat down heavily in the chair across from his desk. "Well, the good news is that nobody wants to start a war over it. The bad news is that 17 different species have formally requested that humans be banned from all naming ceremonies throughout the galaxy." Jake rubbed his forehead. "What about the Zephyrians themselves?" "That's complicated." Lisa pulled up files on her tablet. "High Admiral Kelthvar is facing a political crisis. About half of his people want to change the planet's name immediately. They feel humiliated that their sacred world was named after human bathroom equipment. And the other half?" Lisa smiled for the first time in weeks. "They love it. Especially the younger Zephyrians. They think it's the funniest thing that ever happened. They're calling it the Great Honesty and saying it represents a new era of real communication between species." Jake blinked. "They love being called Toilet Planet?" "Not exactly. But they love the fact that humans were honest about what they saw, even if it was accidentally honest. There's a whole movement of young Zephyrians who are tired of all the formal, ceremonial language their culture uses. They want more direct communication." Before Jake could respond, his communication screen lit up with an urgent message from Admiral Helen Burke at Earth Command. "Morrison, get your butt to the briefing room now. We have a situation." Jake and Lisa hurried to the briefing room. On the main screen was Admiral Burke, a tough woman in her 50s who had been dealing with alien relations for 20 years. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. "Captain Morrison, Dr. Bennett, we have a problem. The Galactic Council has called an emergency session to discuss what they're calling the human naming problem." "What human naming problem?" Jake asked. Admiral Burke's expression was grim. 3 more incidents since Swirla. Captain Rodriguez named a moon rock face because it looked like a rocky face. Captain Williams called a gas giant big spinny thing because he couldn't pronounce the scientific designation. And Captain Davis named an asteroid mining station that place with all the crystals. Jake put his head in his hands. "Oh no. Oh yes. The Galactic Council is meeting tomorrow to vote on Galactic Law Number 1. Never let humans name your homeworld. Or anything else important, for that matter." Lisa looked shocked. "They're creating an actual law because of us?" The preliminary vote was 847 species in favor, 12 opposed, and 23 abstaining. "It's going to pass easily." Jake felt sick. "So we're banned from naming things forever?" "Gets worse," Admiral Burke continued. 3 different news networks are calling you the captain who named Toilet Planet. There's a comedy show on Altair Prime that does a skit about you every week, and somebody made a song called Swirl a Blues that's #1 on 16 different worlds. But then Admiral Burke's expression changed slightly. However, there is some interesting news from the planet itself. She switched to a new file. Swirla has become the most popular tourist destination in Zephyrian space. Tourism income has increased by 300% in just 3 months. Young Zephyrians from across the Empire are traveling there to see the world that humans named honestly. Jake stared at the screen. Tourism. It gets better. Cultural exchange programs between humans and Zephyrians have exploded. Young Zephyrians are learning English at record rates. They want to understand human humor and directness. And they're teaching humans about their art and philosophy. Lisa was taking notes rapidly. This is incredible. Accidental cultural exchange on a massive scale. There's more, Admiral Burke said. High Admiral Kelthvar sent a personal message this morning. He wants to meet with Captain Morrison. Jake's stomach dropped. To yell at me? Unknown. But the message was interesting. He said, and I quote, Captain Morrison has taught us something valuable about honesty. Perhaps it is time for an honest conversation. The screen changed to show news reports from across the galaxy. Jake watched footage of young Zephyrians laughing at human comedy shows. There were images of human and Zephyrian scientists working together on research projects. A group of Zephyrian artists had created a sculpture called The Beauty of Simple Truth that looked suspiciously like the Terra Nova. The strangest part, Admiral Burke continued, is that other species are starting to request human opinions on their naming projects. The Deltans want us to help name their new space station. The Vegans asked for suggestions for their colony ship. Why? Jake asked. Because apparently, humans are the only species in the galaxy who will tell the truth about what something actually looks like, instead of making up fancy names that don't mean anything. Lisa was laughing now. We've accidentally become the galaxy's honest brokers. Don't get too excited, Admiral Burke warned. The galactic law is still going to pass, but there's talk of a secondary resolution asking humans to serve as cultural honesty consultants for species who want direct feedback instead of diplomatic politeness. Jake looked at the images of Zephyrians and humans working together. 3 months ago, he thought he had ruined everything. Now it looked like he might have accidentally started something good. So what happens next? Jake asked. Admiral Burke smiled. You're going to Swirla, Captain. High Admiral Kelthavar wants to have that honest conversation, and the planet's first anniversary celebration is next week. Guess who they want as the guest of honor? Jake stared at the screen showing happy Zephyrians swimming around what still looked like a giant toilet bowl to him. I'm going back to toilet, planet, he said quietly. You're going back to Swirla, Lisa corrected. The world that accidentally taught the galaxy that sometimes the truth is more important than dignity. 6 months after the naming ceremony, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the surface of Swirla for the first time. The planet was even more beautiful in person than it had been in the holographic displays. 3 massive oceans stretched to the horizon, their waters shifting between deep blue and brilliant green as the twin moons moved overhead. The celebration was incredible. Thousands of Zephyrians had gathered for the first anniversary of their world's naming. But this wasn't the formal ceremonial gathering Jake had expected. Young Zephyrians were playing games that looked like water volleyball. Others were performing what could only be described as comedy shows, making jokes in broken English about human naming habits. Captain Morrison, a familiar voice called from the water. High Admiral Kelthavar approached, but he looked different than he had during the formal ceremony. He was wearing casual decorations instead of his official regalia, and he seemed more relaxed. High Admiral, Jake said, bowing respectfully. Thank you for inviting me to your celebration. Please call me Kelth. After everything that has happened, I think we are past formal titles. The Zephyrian leader gestured toward a platform floating on the water. Come, let us talk honestly, as your species does so well. They sat together on the platform watching the celebration around them. Jake could see human tourists mixing with Zephyrian families, everyone laughing and enjoying themselves. I owe you an apology, Kelth said suddenly. Jake was surprised. You owe me an apology? I'm the one who accidentally named your planet after bathroom equipment. Kelth made a sound that Jake realized was laughter. Yes, you did, and it was exactly what we needed. I don't understand. Kelth pointed to a group of young Zephyrians who were teaching human children how to swim in the alien style. For 4,000 years, our culture has been built on ceremony and formal language. Everything had to sound ancient and wise and meaningful. But we forgot how to simply say what we meant. Jake watched the mixed groups of humans and Zephyrians playing together. And naming your planet Swirla changed that? Your young navigator's honest reaction changed everything. When he said our beautiful world looked like a toilet, half of our people were outraged, but the other half started laughing because they realized he was right. It does look like that from space. Kelth gestured toward the nearest whirlpool where the tidal water was swirling down between the oceans. We had been so focused on seeing cosmic meaning that we forgot to see what was actually there. Your people taught us that both things can be true at the same time. It can look like a toilet and still be beautiful. Jake felt a weight lifting from his shoulders that he didn't know had been there. So you're not angry about the name? Captain, Jake, this planet has had more visitors in 6 months than our homeworld gets in 10 years. Our young people are learning about your culture, your humor, your direct way of speaking. They are teaching your people about our art, our philosophy, our understanding of water and time. It is the greatest cultural exchange in our history. A young Zephyrian swam up to their platform. Excuse me, are you Captain Morrison? Yes, I am. I wanted to thank you. I am studying at the new Human Zephyrian Cultural Center. Your naming of our world helped me understand that truth and beauty don't have to use fancy words. After the young alien swam away, Kelth continued. The Galactic Council did pass their law yesterday. Galactic Law Number 1 now officially states, never let humans name your homeworld. Jake winced. I heard about that. But they also passed a second resolution. The Galactic Council has created a new position, Interspecies Honesty Consultant. Guess which species they want to fill that role? Humans? Humans. 17 different species have already submitted requests for human consultants to help them communicate more directly with each other. The Deltans want you to help them explain to the Altarians why their new space station design is impractical. The Vegans want human help telling the Krogan clans that their battle songs are too loud during diplomatic meetings. Jake laughed despite himself. So we're officially the galaxy's truth-tellers? You are officially the species that will say what everyone else is thinking but is too polite to mention. They sat quietly for a moment, watching the celebration. A group of Zephyrian musicians was playing what sounded like jazz music, while human dancers tried to move like they were underwater. There is one more thing, Kelth said. He gestured toward the largest whirlpool. We have built something to honor this historic moment. Jake looked where Kelth was pointing and saw a massive statue rising from the center of the whirlpool. It was made of the same crystal material as Zephyrian buildings, but it was shaped like the Terra Nova. At the base of the statue were words written in both Zephyrian script and English. What does it say? Jake asked. To Captain Jake Morrison and the crew of the Terra Nova, who taught us that sometimes the most honest name is the best name. Jake felt his eyes getting watery. You built a statue for us? We built a statue for honesty. Your accidental honesty changed our entire culture for the better. As the suns began to set over Swirla's 3 oceans, Jake received a priority message from Earth Command. Admiral Burke appeared on his communicator. Morrison, I hope you're sitting down. The Galactic Council has a new job offer for you. What kind of job? They want you to head up the new Diplomatic Honesty Division. Your mission would be to help species communicate more directly with each other. No more dancing around difficult topics. No more pretending problems don't exist because it's not polite to mention them. Jake looked around at the celebration, at humans and Zephyrians working and playing together, at the statue honoring accidental truth-telling. What would that mean for my ship and crew? You'd keep the Terra Nova, but instead of exploration missions, you'd travel to diplomatic trouble spots and help species have honest conversations about their problems. The pay is double what you make now. and you'd be preventing conflicts instead of just discovering new worlds. Jake thought about Kyle Jones, whose honest observation had started all of this. He thought about Dr. Bennett, who had worried so much about cultural sensitivity that she almost missed the value of cultural honesty. He thought about his entire crew, who had accidentally become the galaxy's first truth-telling diplomats. "I accept," Jake said. Kelth heard the conversation and smiled. "Congratulations, Captain, the galaxy's first official honesty consultant." As the celebration continued around them, Jake realized that sometimes the biggest mistakes could lead to the best outcomes. The Zephyrians had wanted humans to name their world because they thought humans were wise and meaningful. It turned out they were right, just not in the way anyone expected. Humans were wise enough to tell the truth, even when the truth was embarrassing. And sometimes that was exactly the kind of wisdom the galaxy needed. Jake looked up at the statue of his ship rising from the whirlpool and smiled. Tomorrow he would start his new job as the galaxy's official truth-teller. But tonight he was just a captain celebrating on the most honest planet in the galaxy. A planet that still looked like a giant toilet bowl, and was beautiful anyway.